Hey there. So, in today's video, we are going to take a look at Pentathlon Agility 1 designed by Stephanie Simcat at the 1TDC Invitational. We're going to go through the map first, and then we are going to take a look at my run, and I will share kind of all my thoughts on what happened and how I'm going to deal with that going forward. So, first, anytime I'm kind of looking at the map, the first thing I do is I learn the pattern of obstacles. So just kind of taking some mental notes about some of the turns and the skills and maybe what the more challenging things might be for my dog. But I'm not really thinking about handling just yet. So I am thinking about my dog's reality lines on a course like this and what that might look like. So I'm going to just quickly go through here. And so the very first thing that I notice on the reality lines is that this number 17 jump is really obvious. It is a high off-course potential for a dog like Sprint. And I'm always making these mental notes on the maps because those are the things I'm going to check when I get out there and kind of get my hands on the course, because definitely the judge can decide to build it differently. And particular to this event, this course was built in two different rings and therefore tweaked by two different judges. So that's kind of an interesting exception to an event like this, where the presiding judge gets kind of final say over how it is built. So I was lucky enough to run in the ring where the designer was also the judge. So I at least feel like I can trust that I got what the designer wanted out of that course. So I'm going to keep going. And thinking about how, like, getting to the backside of number 10 here has a lot of things around it. Not extremely obvious off-course potentials, but just things that could cause problems. I will say that when I was walking the course, this jump didn't feel like it was an option. So I don't remember thinking hard about 21 at all. So we'll take a look on the video. But this is kind of how I like to go through and see what my dog might see. So I was definitely thinking about this 18 to 19, seeing the side of the broad jump, things like that. And then we are finished. So that's kind of the first thing that I'm doing, is kind of seeing the dog's reality lines, making the mental notes of the tricky spots where I think that she'll need me most. And then I start thinking about, okay, where do I need to be on this course to make things happen for her? And I always kind of work that backwards. And I'm always checking my positions for non-jumps and turning obstacles. So there's a lot of turns on this course. So there were a lot of positions that I needed to be aware of. I wanted to be far enough ahead at the dog walk that she's not expecting to curl off of it. So that also means being ahead when she's coming out of the tunnel to start showing that extension. When she's landing 18, I need to be able to cue 19 and make sure she goes in it before moving to this next position. When she's landing 17, I definitely wanted to be on the other side of her path and out of the way. When she was coming out of 16, I knew I wanted to be able to make this backside really clear to her. So being far ahead was ideal, and still being able to make it to the next position. Then when she was coming out of the weave poles, because I knew this was going to be really fast, I wanted to be here. When she was landing 14, I wanted to be here to help with the entry. And when she was coming out of 13, I want to be here to help make sure that we have a solid turn out of 13. They do see this jump. It was definitely in her path, but this gap was quite big. Then when they're landing 12, I want to be parallel, making sure that I'm cueing the tunnel. This was kind of a little bit of a tricky option. If my dog was in a sit-stay at the exit of the tire, I have options, but since I know for when I land number 12, I want to be on the takeoff side of 12, I can say, well, I also want to be to the right of my dog's line over here when they land 11. So then this 9-10 business, I had a choice. I could be also on the takeoff side of 10, or I could be more on the landing side of 10. And this got determined in the walkthrough. At first, I really thought I was going to have the dog on left for 9, 10, 11, 12 and run that whole thing. But I checked that out pretty early on, and I immediately did not like it. So I went with being over here when the dog was landing 10, which meant I was going to be back here when the dog was exiting number 9. So I chose in my walkthrough to do a backside send on 10 to a German turn for number 10, and then ran dog on left the rest of the way. So then that meant when she was landing number 8, I needed to be over here already so that the line to the A-frame was clear. And when she was exiting the tunnel, I needed to make sure that I was connected and able to show the line to the throttle wrap at number 8. When she was exiting number 5, again, thinking about the off-course option at 17, I really wanted to stay behind this number 18 jump, so I chose to be closer to the A-frame laterally and also quite far away from the jump so that I could make for a nice tunnel break and then get her into the tunnel. So I didn't really have to be in too big of a hurry when leaving number 3. So I could be here when she was landing number 3. I could be here when she was exiting the teeter, and I could start anywhere. So I mostly planned this before the walkthrough, and I just checked those pieces during the walkthrough so that where I had an option, I could make that decision and then rehearse what I wanted to rehearse really well and get as many clean walkthroughs as I could in the 8-minute walkthrough time so that I could rehearse from 1 to 21 as I wanted it to happen as many times as possible. So going into the run, I felt really confident and comfortable with my plan. I had been able to watch one group of dogs run, and I didn't really need to change my plan. The things that I noticed when I watched were a couple of dogs going wide enough over 18, this jump back here, to the tunnel, going wide enough that they were almost taking the broad jump. So in my mind, I put the idea of a reverse spin in my mind for that jump, even though I walked it like once with it and a couple of times without it during my walkthrough time, but I put it in my head as like, it's okay if you spin. And then the other thing I noticed when watching dogs before my group was that they were curling out of the tunnel a bit and then having to correct to get up the dog walk. So I also put that mental note in my head to keep moving forward. Like once I saw her in the tunnel, have a lot of connection out of the tunnel and to keep moving forward. Because if as she's coming around the corner of the tunnel, if she could start to see me out ahead of her, I thought that would help her kind of seek out the dog walk better. So those are the two mental notes that I kind of added to my plan after watching one group of dogs, but my handling strategy as a whole did not change, which I am really proud of. So this is something that Sprint does, where she starts kind of scanning where all the jumps are, and I know she does it, and so far it has not bitten me. She doesn't take an off course at the beginning. She stays. I have learned that it's easier to just lead out and show her, you know, the obstacle she should be focused on, rather than trying to fight her to sit perfectly. And it does not cause any problems. So backside wrap. Here's the tunnel break. So if we're thinking back to that map, everything so far is according to plan. She actually turned a little bit too tight there, so that is kind of fun. That I overhandled that turn a little bit. Again, I was pretty worried about this jump in the corner, but she turned beautifully. She parallels my line really well. So I'm going this way and she's going this way, and I have to actually correct with some upper body cues, like, no, take that tunnel, take that tunnel. And that's one of those mistakes where I'm like, that's a gold star moment, because she's listening, she's focused. That was just, I need to update my information about her ability to turn. So here I'm still on track, cueing the throttle wrap. When she's landing, I'm on my way, so the path to the A-frame is clear. So far it's matching up really, really well with the positions that I chose in the walkthrough. Backside to the German turn. Now we're dog on left. Into the tunnel. Tiny little pause, but I keep moving, and this is where we get into some shenanigans. So this was definitely a handler error. I will pop that back to here for y'all. So I would have liked to do more of a tunnel break like I did on the previous tunnel, but my head started moving ahead to the weave poles sooner, because I was a little bit concerned about helping her slow down for this entry. The distance from the wall to the weaves was quite short, so I definitely got ahead of myself there and caused all of these shenanigans, 100%. So the last thing she sees when she's going into the tunnel, I'm still moving in this direction, so of course she comes out a little bit wide. I told you, looking at the map, that this jump was there, that they probably saw it when they were coming out of the tunnel, but this gap was quite big. So I am happy that she didn't go completely straight. So she listened to my easy cue, because she came out turning, but I did not help her enough physically with that turn, and that's a bummer, because that was a really costly mistake. So what ended up happening is we only got one refusal on paper, but that refusal took up so much time. We actually ended up having time faults on top of that refusal, where she would have been, without it, she would have been ranked quite high in the results. But here is the tunnel to the backside. I'm probably not as far ahead as I wanted to be in this situation, but this is where her ability to run straight out of a tunnel and listen for her backside cues probably helped me a lot. And then I did end up reverse spinning there again, like, don't let this dog go off course after you work so hard. And then I was really pleased at how far ahead I was exiting the tunnel to help her get onto the dog walk. So some of you may know that I was rehabbing her dog walk over the winter, and she has mostly let go of her 3-strided dog walk. However, she started doing this thing where her third stride, there's the first stride, second stride, third stride, is a little bit short. So you can see that her front feet hit before the apex and her rear feet are going to hit after the apex, and this just makes her fourth stride a little bit short. So I was really happy to see the new behavior show up and that the old behavior didn't appear in this very first run. But that is kind of where that's at right now. So overall, really pleased with this run. Incredibly bummed that I made such a minor handling error that ended in such a costly mistake, but could not be more impressed with her for the first run of such a marathon event. And because I have such wonderful friends, I have this additional angle of this run that I'm just going to play. There's that start line drama. Her teeters were, it was surprising to me that her teeter was so pushy as the first one out. And teeter faults were actually a big surprising problem throughout the weekend. So teeter training is back on the whiteboard to kind of troubleshoot this spring. And here's that very costly refusal. But I'm also really impressed with her ability to kind of have that frustrating moment where we weren't on the same page and then to get back on the same page together. And that also feels really good. That wasn't always the case for us as a team. Okay, so that is Pentathlon Agility 1. Please let me know what you think or if you have any questions in the comments.